Leonard Ward stood frozen in the doorway of room 1204, his heart pounding as he watched the young woman crumpled on the floor beside her cleaning cart. Her shoulders shook with silent sobs, and in her trembling hands was a crumpled termination letter. But what made Leonard's blood run cold wasn't just seeing his employee crying. It was reading the reason written in bold letters: theft of hotel property. The woman he was looking at was Beatrice Jansen, a single mother who had been working at his five-star Grand Palace Hotel for 3 years. And the man who had just fired her? His own general manager, Richard Stone, a man Leonard had trusted completely. What Leonard didn't know yet was that Beatrice hadn't stolen anything. The truth was so much worse than theft. It was a web of lies, racism, and corruption that went straight to the top of his hotel's management. And in just a few minutes, everything Leonard thought he knew about his business was about to crumble. Wait. If you are human and you believe it is good to treat everyone good, a like and subscribe will make me feel we think alike, and drop a comment about where you're watching from. Let me take you back to where this all started, just 3 hours earlier. Leonard Ward wasn't supposed to be at the Grand Palace Hotel that Tuesday afternoon. The 35-year-old CEO was meant to be in a board meeting across town, discussing the expansion of his hotel chain. But when his assistant called to cancel the meeting due to a family emergency, Leonard saw an opportunity he rarely got, a chance to see his flagship hotel through the eyes of a regular guest. Leonard had built his empire from nothing. Growing up in Detroit, he'd watched his grandmother clean office buildings at night to pay the bills. She always told him, "Baby, it doesn't matter what job someone has. You treat everyone with respect, because we're all just trying to make it in this world." Those words shaped everything Leonard did as he built his business. Now, dressed in simple jeans and a hoodie instead of his usual expensive suits, Leonard walked through the gleaming lobby of his hotel. The marble floors sparkled, the crystal chandeliers cast perfect light, and everything looked exactly as it should. But Leonard wasn't here to admire the decorations. He was here to see how his staff really treated guests when they thought no one important was watching. The first sign that something was wrong came at the front desk. Leonard approached the reception counter, where a young black woman was checking in an elderly white couple. The desk clerk, Jennifer, was someone Leonard had personally hired 6 months ago after being impressed by her qualifications and warm personality during the interview. "I'm sorry, but we don't have any rooms available in that price range," Jennifer was saying politely to the couple. "The only rooms we have left are our premium suites at $400 per night." Leonard frowned. He knew for a fact that the hotel wasn't fully booked. They had at least 20 standard rooms available at $150 per night. Why was Jennifer lying to these guests? But then Leonard noticed something that made his stomach drop. Richard Stone, his general manager, was standing behind the reception desk, nodding approvingly at Jennifer's lie. When the elderly couple sighed and said they couldn't afford $400, Richard stepped forward with a fake smile. "Perhaps I can recommend a more suitable hotel for your budget," Richard said, his voice dripping with false kindness. "The Comfort Inn down the street might be more appropriate." Leonard watched in horror as his general manager essentially kicked out paying customers. But the worst part, after the couple left, Richard patted Jennifer on the shoulder and whispered, "Good job. We need to maintain our standards here." Leonard's hands clenched into fists. Maintain standards was code language he recognized, the kind of discrimination he thought he'd left behind in his grandmother's stories from the 1960s. But Leonard forced himself to stay calm. Maybe he was jumping to conclusions. Maybe there was a reasonable explanation. He decided to observe more before confronting anyone. He spent the next hour walking through the hotel, and what he saw made him sick. The housekeeping staff, mostly young women of color like Beatrice, were being treated like invisible servants. The white management staff spoke to them rudely, gave them impossible cleaning schedules, and acted like they were doing them a favor by employing them. Leonard watched Richard Stone patrol the floors like a prison warden, finding fault with everything the housekeepers did. He saw him write up a woman for taking 30 seconds too long in the bathroom. He watched him dock another woman's pay for excessive talking when she was simply asking a coworker about proper cleaning procedures. But the worst was yet to come. As Leonard rode the elevator to the 12th floor, planning to check on the presidential suite, he heard shouting from down the hallway. Richard Stone's voice boomed through the corridor, angry and vicious. "You think I'm stupid, Beatrice? You think I don't notice when things go missing?" Leonard quickened his pace, following the sound to room 1204. The door was slightly open, and through the crack, he could see Richard towering over Beatrice Jansen. The young woman was backed against the wall, her cleaning supplies scattered around her feet. "I didn't take anything, Mr. Stone," Beatrice said, her voice shaking. "I swear on my daughter's life, I would never. Don't lie to me." Richard screamed, his face red with rage. "The gold pen from the presidential suite is missing, and you were the last person to clean that room. I've had my eye on you people for weeks." "You people," Beatrice whispered, tears starting to form in her eyes. Richard's lip curled into a cruel smile. "You know exactly what I mean. You people always think you can take whatever you want and play innocent. Well, not in my hotel." Leonard felt his whole body go cold. This wasn't just about a missing pen. This was about hatred, pure and simple. And it was happening in his hotel, under his name, to his employees. But what Richard said next made Leonard's blood turn to ice. "Pack your things, Jansen. You're fired for theft. And don't even think about asking for a reference. I'll make sure every hotel in this city knows exactly what kind of person you are." Beatrice fell to her knees, sobbing. "Please, Mr. Stone. My daughter. She needs surgery next month. I need this job. I didn't take anything, I swear." Richard threw a termination letter at her feet and walked toward the door. That's when he saw Leonard standing in the hallway, still dressed in his casual clothes, looking like just another guest who had wandered up to the wrong floor. "Can I help you?" Richard asked, his voice switching instantly to fake politeness. "Guests aren't supposed to be on this floor during cleaning hours." Leonard looked at Richard Stone, a man he had trusted, a man he had promoted, a man who was destroying lives in his name, and felt something snap inside him. But instead of revealing who he was right then and there, Leonard made a decision that would change everything. He was going to let Richard dig his grave even deeper. Because what Leonard had just witnessed was probably just the tip of the iceberg, and he needed to know how deep this corruption went. "Sorry," Leonard said quietly, pretending to be confused. "I was just looking for the ice machine." Richard's eyes narrowed as he looked at Leonard's dark skin and casual clothes. The transformation was immediate and disgusting. The fake politeness vanished, replaced by the same contempt Leonard had just seen him show Beatrice. "The ice machine is for paying guests only," Richard said coldly. "And I don't remember seeing you check in. How did you get up here?" The question hit Leonard like a punch to the gut. In his own hotel, wearing casual clothes, he was being treated like a criminal simply because of the color of his skin. Leonard felt his grandmother's voice echo in his mind. "Sometimes, baby, you gotta let people show you who they really are." So instead of exploding with anger, Leonard decided to play along. He was about to get an education in just how rotten his hotel had become. I'm staying in room 1015, Leonard lied smoothly, naming a room he knew was empty. "I just got lost looking for ice." Richard's eyes got even colder. "Room 1015? That's interesting, because I personally oversee all check-ins for our premium floors." He pulled out his phone with a nasty smile. "Let me just call down to confirm your registration." Leonard's heart raced. In seconds, Richard would discover there was no guest in room 1015. And then what? Would he call security? Have Leonard arrested for trespassing in his own hotel? The irony was so bitter it made him sick. But before Richard could make the call, Beatrice's voice cut through the tension. "Please," she whispered from where she was still kneeling on the floor, clutching the termination letter. "Please don't call security on him, too. He didn't do anything wrong." Richard spun around, his face twisted with rage. "Did I tell you to speak? You're not even an employee anymore, so shut your mouth." Something in Beatrice's voice made Leonard look at her more carefully. The way she said, too, like security being called on black people was a regular thing to happen here. And the protective way she was looking at Leonard, even though she was the one who had just lost her job. "Actually," Leonard said, thinking fast, "I was hoping to find someone to help me. See, I'm a reporter for the City Tribune, and I'm working on a story about hotel working conditions." The lie came out so smoothly that even Leonard was surprised. But it worked. Richard's face went white as a sheet. "A reporter?" Richard stammered. We weren't expecting any media visits today." "The best stories happen when you're not expecting visitors," Leonard said, pulling out his phone and pretending to record. "I've been documenting some very interesting management techniques today, especially how staff members are treated when they're accused of crimes." Richard's hands started shaking. Now wait just a minute. That woman did steal from us. I have every right to. What did she steal? Leonard interrupted. A gold pen from the presidential suite. Worth over $300. Leonard almost laughed. He knew exactly which pen Richard was talking about. It was a promotional pen from a conference, worth maybe $5. But more importantly, Leonard knew something Richard didn't. The presidential suite had security cameras that recorded everything. That's a serious accusation, Leonard said. Do you have proof? She was the last person to clean that room, Richard said defensively. The pen was there when she went in, gone when she came out. So you have video evidence of her taking it. Richard's face got even paler. The cameras in that room have been broken for weeks. Another lie. Leonard had personally checked those cameras just last week during a security review. They were working perfectly. But then Beatrice spoke up, her voice stronger now. Mr. Stone, the pen wasn't stolen. Mrs. Patterson from room 1201 borrowed it yesterday. She asked me to get it for her because she needed to sign some important papers. I was going to return it today, but she gestured helplessly at her termination letter. Richard's mouth fell open. He had been caught in his lie, and everyone in the room knew it. But instead of apologizing or backing down, he doubled down on his cruelty. Even if that's true, you should have asked permission first. Taking hotel property without authorization is still theft, even if you plan to return it. Leonard felt his anger building to a breaking point. This man was willing to destroy a single mother's life over a $5 pen that wasn't even missing. But the worst part was realizing this probably wasn't the first time Richard had done this. How many other employees have you fired for theft? Leonard asked, still pretending to be a reporter. Richard shifted uncomfortably. I don't see how that's relevant. I do, said a new voice from the doorway. Everyone turned to see Jennifer, the front desk clerk, standing in the hallway. Her face was streaked with tears, but her voice was steady and determined. I can't do this anymore, she said, looking directly at Richard. I can't keep lying for you. Richard's face went from pale to bright red. Jennifer, get back to your station right now, or you'll be fired too. Good, Jennifer said. Because I quit. She walked into the room and stood next to Beatrice. That pen he's talking about, it's sitting in Mrs. Patterson's room right now. I saw her using it this morning when I delivered fresh towels. She told me Beatrice helped her get it yesterday, and that she forgot to return it. Richard looked like he was about to explode. You're all lying. You're all in this together. Are we? Jennifer asked. Then let's go check Mrs. Patterson's room right now. Let's ask her directly. The silence that followed was deafening. Richard knew he was trapped, but he was too proud and too hateful to admit it. That's when Leonard decided it was time to drop his first bomb. You know what, Richard? Leonard said, using the man's first name for the first time. I think that's a great idea. Let's go talk to Mrs. Patterson. But first, I have a question for you. Richard looked suspicious. What? In your 3 years as general manager here, how many black employees have you fired for theft? I don't keep track of employees by race, Richard said quickly. That would be illegal. But I bet you remember the numbers, Leonard pressed. Because I bet the number is pretty high, isn't it? Richard's silence was answer enough. Jennifer stepped forward. I can tell you the number, she said quietly. Because I've been keeping track. In the last year alone, Richard has fired 8 black employees for theft. 8. And you want to know something interesting? Not one of them was ever actually caught stealing anything on camera. Not one case was ever reported to the police. And not one of those employees was ever able to find another job in this city, because Richard told every other hotel manager they were thieves. Leonard felt like the floor was falling out from under him. 8 people. 8 lives destroyed by one man's racism and hatred. 8 families who lost their income because of lies. And it's not just theft, Jennifer continued, her voice getting stronger. Richard has a whole system. If he doesn't like someone, and it's always the black employees or the Hispanic employees, he finds a way to get rid of them. Theft, insubordination, poor performance. He always has an excuse. Beatrice looked up from the floor, her eyes wide. Maria from housekeeping. She was fired last month for poor performance. But she was the hardest worker we had. And James from maintenance, Jennifer added. Fired for insubordination because he asked Richard to speak to him with respect. Leonard felt sick. His hotel, the business he had built on his grandmother's values, had become a place where good people were destroyed by prejudice and hate. But Richard wasn't done. Cornered and desperate, he decided to show his true colors completely. "You want to know the truth?" he snarled, pointing at Beatrice and Jennifer. "These people don't belong in a five-star establishment like this. Our guests expect a certain standard. They don't want to be served by people who look like they just walked out of the ghetto." The words hung in the air like poison. Leonard felt something inside him snap completely. But before he could respond, Beatrice stood up slowly, wiping her tears. "My daughter is 6 years old," she said quietly. "She has a heart condition that requires surgery. I work 2 jobs to pay for her medical bills, this one and cleaning offices at night. I've never stolen a single thing in my life. I've never even been late to work. And you want to know what your standard looks like to me?" She stepped closer to Richard, her voice getting stronger with each word. "Your standard looks like hatred. Your standard looks like cruelty. Your standard looks like destroying families because you think the color of someone's skin makes them less than human." Richard opened his mouth to respond, but Leonard had heard enough. It was time to end this charade. "You know what, Richard?" Leonard said, pulling out his wallet and showing his identification. "I think it's time you learned about real standards." Richard looked at the ID card, and Leonard watched the blood drain from his face completely. The card read, Leonard Ward, Chief Executive Officer, Grand Palace Hotel Group. The silence that followed was so complete you could hear a pin drop. Richard's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. Jennifer gasped. Beatrice stared at Leonard in shock. But Leonard wasn't done. Not even close. Richard's face went through a rainbow of colors. White, red, green, as the reality hit him. He had just spent the last hour being racist, cruel, and hateful to his own boss. The man who signed his paychecks. The man who could end his career with a single phone call. Mr. Ward," Richard stammered, his voice barely a whisper. I didn't know. I wasn't expecting." "You weren't expecting the CEO of this hotel to be a black man walking around in casual clothes?" Leonard asked, his voice deadly calm. "Or you weren't expecting to get caught destroying people's lives for sport?" Richard tried to speak, but no words came out. Sweat was pouring down his face, and his hand was shaking so badly he could barely hold his phone. Beatrice was staring at Leonard with wide eyes. You're really the owner of this hotel?" "I am," Leonard said gently, his voice completely different when he spoke to her. "And Beatrice, I owe you an apology. This should never have happened to you, or anyone else who works here." Jennifer stepped forward, tears streaming down her face. "Mr. Ward, I'm so sorry. I know what I did at the front desk was wrong. Richard told us we had to turn away certain guests to maintain the hotel's image, but I knew it was wrong. I should have stood up to him sooner." Leonard nodded. "Jennifer, you were in an impossible position. When your boss tells you to do something or lose your job, especially when you need that job to survive, I understand why you felt trapped. But I'm proud of you for finding the courage to speak up today." He turned back to Richard, who was now visibly trembling. "But you, Richard, you had no excuse. You weren't following orders from above. You were the one giving the orders. You were the one creating a culture of hatred and discrimination in my hotel." "Sir, please," Richard begged. "I can explain. I was just trying to maintain standards. I was trying to protect the hotel's reputation. By destroying innocent people's lives." Leonard's voice rose for the first time. "By calling human beings you people. By firing a single mother over a $5 pen that was never even stolen." Leonard pulled out his phone and made a call. "Security, this is Leonard Ward. I need you to come to room 1204 immediately. And call Mrs. Patterson in room 1201. Ask her to come here with the gold pen she borrowed yesterday." While they waited, Leonard turned to Beatrice. "Beatrice, I want you to know that you're not fired. In fact, you're getting a promotion. I'm making you the new assistant manager of guest services, with a salary increase and full medical benefits for you and your daughter." Beatrice's legs gave out, and she sat down hard on the bed, sobbing with relief. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you so much. And Jennifer," Leonard continued, "I know you quit, but I'm hoping you'll reconsider. I'd like to offer you the position of guest relations supervisor. Your job will be to make sure every single guest who walks through our doors is treated with respect and dignity, regardless of what they look like or how they're dressed." Jennifer nodded eagerly through her tears. "Yes, sir. I would be honored." Within minutes, hotel security arrived, followed by a confused Mrs. Patterson, who was indeed carrying the gold pen. The elderly woman looked around the room at the crying faces and the sweating manager. "Is everything all right?" she asked. "This young lady," she pointed at Beatrice, "was so helpful yesterday when I needed this pen. I completely forgot to return it. I hope she's not in trouble because of me." Richard looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. Leonard smiled at Mrs. Patterson. "No trouble at all, ma'am. Just a misunderstanding that's now been cleared up." After Mrs. Patterson left, Leonard addressed the security team. "Gentlemen, I need you to escort Mr. Stone out of the building. He's no longer employed here." "Wait," Richard cried out desperately. "You can't fire me. I have a contract. I'll sue you." Leonard held up a hand to stop him. "Richard, let me explain something to you. When you systematically discriminate against employees based on their race, you're not just violating company policy. You're breaking federal law. When you create hostile work environments and falsely accuse people of crimes, you're opening this company up to massive lawsuits." He stepped closer to Richard, his voice getting quieter and more dangerous. "I've been recording our entire conversation on my phone. I have witnesses to your racist statements, and I guarantee you that if I investigate further, I'll find evidence of every single illegal firing you've made in the past 3 years." Richard's face was now completely white. "Please, Mr. Ward, I have a family. I have a mortgage. I need this job. You should have thought about that before you decided to play God with other people's lives," Leonard replied coldly. "Beatrice has a family too. A sick daughter who needs surgery. But that didn't stop you from trying to destroy her life over a pen she never even stole." Leonard pulled out his phone again and made another call. "Legal department? This is Leonard. I need you to contact every hotel in the city. Tell them that Richard Stone was terminated for discrimination and creating a hostile work environment. Make sure they understand that any negative references he may have given about our former employees were false and malicious." He hung up and looked at Richard one more time. "You see, Richard, that's the difference between you and me. You use your power to hurt people. I'm using mine to help them." As security escorted a broken Richard Stone out of the room, Leonard turned to Beatrice and Jennifer. "Now, I need your help with something important. I want to know the names of every employee Richard fired unfairly. I want to contact each of them personally, offer them their jobs back with back pay, and help them find new positions if they've already moved on." Beatrice wiped her eyes. "There's Maria, James, Antoine, Keisha, Carlos, David, Tamara, and Michael. 8 people total, just like Jennifer said." "Good," Leonard said. "We're going to make this right. All of it." Over the next hour, Leonard made call after call. He personally apologized to each of the 8 employees who had been wrongfully fired. 5 of them accepted offers to return to work with promotions and raises. The other 3 had found new jobs, but gratefully accepted Leonard's offer to write them positive recommendation letters and provide references. But Leonard wasn't done yet. He called an all-staff meeting for that evening. When the entire hotel staff gathered in the main conference room, Leonard stood before them, still wearing his jeans and hoodie. "Some of you might not recognize me dressed like this," he began. "I'm Leonard Ward, and I own this hotel. Today, I walked through our building pretending to be a regular guest, and what I saw broke my heart." He looked around the room at the faces of his employees: housekeepers, front desk staff, maintenance workers, servers, cooks, people of all colors and backgrounds who had been living in fear under Richard's reign of terror. "This hotel was built on a simple principle that my grandmother taught me. Treat everyone with respect, because we're all just trying to make it in this world. Today, I learned that we lost our way, but we're going to find it again." Leonard announced new policies on the spot: anonymous reporting systems for discrimination, mandatory sensitivity training for all management staff, profit-sharing bonuses for all employees, not just managers, and most importantly, an open-door policy where any employee could speak directly to Leonard about problems without fear of retaliation. "I want every single person who works here to know that you are valued," Leonard said. "Not because of what you look like or where you come from, but because you're human beings who deserve dignity and respect." The room erupted in applause, and Leonard saw tears of relief and hope in many eyes. 3 months later, the Grand Palace Hotel had been completely transformed. Employee turnover dropped to almost 0. Customer satisfaction scores reached all-time highs, and the hotel won an award for workplace diversity and inclusion. Beatrice's daughter successfully had her heart surgery, fully covered by the hotel's premium health insurance plan. Beatrice herself had become one of the most beloved managers in the company, known for her kindness and dedication to both guests and staff. Jennifer had turned the front desk into a model of hospitality, where every guest, regardless of race, age, or how they dressed, was treated like royalty. And Richard Stone? He never worked in hospitality again. Word of his discriminatory practices had spread throughout the industry, and no reputable hotel would hire him. The last Leonard heard, Richard was working at a car wash, finally learning what it felt like to be on the receiving end of disrespect. As for Leonard, he had learned the most valuable lesson of his business career. The real measure of success isn't in the marble floors or crystal chandeliers. It's in treating every human being with the dignity they deserve. Sometimes the most important discoveries happen when you're willing to see your world through different eyes. And sometimes, justice comes to those who abuse their power in ways they never expect. Leonard kept his grandmother's picture on his desk, and every day he remembered her words, "We're all just trying to make it in this world." In his hotel, everyone was going to make it together.